This is the Ducati Streetfighter V4, new and updated for 2025, and put simply, it's the naked version of their outrageously fast Panigale V4 superbike. So with that phenomenal bike as a base, well, my only concern is that this might be too much bike for the road, or is it every bit as special to ride as it looks? Well, today we're going to take it out for our first ride to find out. Now, before we get on the road, a quick look over the specs to find out what's new for this 2025 model. This beast is powered by their Desmo Sedici Stradale V4 engine, same as the last generation but with a whole bunch of changes to the internals, which now combine for a ridiculous peak power figure of 214 horsepower. That's 6 horses up on the paltry 208 of the previous gen Street Fighter, although peak torque is shifted a little higher up in the rev range. Other changes to the bike include the frame and swing arm, both of which are lighter, but also designed to be less rigid than the previous gen in order to improve grip at higher lean angles. Now, I'd agree with most that this new dual-sided swing arm doesn't look quite so sweet as the last gen single-sider, but there is less weight in total at 189 kilograms wet, no fuel, so a good 5 or 6 kilos down on the previous gen, which will go some way to soften the aesthetic blow. Chassis equipment is pretty much like for like with the Panigale V4S, and so as you'd expect, it's top notch. With Öhlins' latest Smart EC3 semi-active suspension at both ends, Brembo's latest top-of-the-line high pure calipers and Brembo master cylinders to match, plus forged aluminium wheels on this S model for even quicker handling. Naturally, now there's also the aero winglets, which are pretty massive if you view this bike from the front, and Ducati claim they make 17 kilograms of downforce at 168 miles per hour. At somewhat more sensible speeds though, you'll have to rely on the electronics to keep the front wheel on the deck, although thankfully they're plentiful with all the modes, TC, ABS and wheelie control settings you could ever want, all managed through this new humongous looking 6.9-inch dash with all manner of layouts. It even gets their MotoGP derived DVO system or Ducati Vehicle Observer, which incorporates inputs from over 70 sources to get a complete picture of how the bike's behaving in order to deliver the optimal response for a given scenario from all this electronic wizardry. Now, I have recently ridden, a couple of weeks back actually, the new Panigale V4, and one of the things that struck me as soon as I got on it is just how tall it is at 845mm in the seat. Naturally, with the majority of this bike being pretty much exactly the same as the Panigale, well, you've got the same seat height here, and for someone like myself who's 5'9" or 175 centimeters, it's pretty much tiptoes on either side. Thankfully though, you do have the flat bars as opposed to the clip-ons here. That was another factor that does make the Panigale feel not that sustainable to ride on the road, and they have moved them 10mm closer to the rider versus the previous generation Street Fighter V4. So this does feel actually, despite the tallness, you know, reasonably road friendly. And they've also made some other tweaks, like they've made the seat longer for this year, the tank's a little narrower, I would say. It certainly looks narrower, and so they say they've done that to make it easier for the rider to move around the bike, but also it should be a little more accommodating if you are slightly taller than me. Now, before we get on the road, I just want to say a massive thanks to Louis Moto for supporting the channel and making free-to-view videos like this one possible. Louis Moto are a huge European retailer who also ship to the UK with fast shipping and free returns. Now, not only do they stock a wide range of the best-known brands in biking, but also a few of their own in-house names in order to offer you the best possible value for money. In this particular video, I'm wearing their Vanucci VSJ2 leather jacket, which I think has the perfect sporty look for this sort of bike. Not only is it AA certified and ships with armored inserts, but it's also super comfy with stretchy bits in all the right places. Plus, there's plenty of space for storing all your stuff when you're out on the bike with 2 outer pockets and 2 inners, and it's got an all-round connecting zip so you could hook it up to their VST2 leather trousers if you did want to take it to the track. We've been testing Louis Moto's own brand stuff for a couple of years now, and so I thoroughly recommend checking out the link in the description below to find out more.
This thing is phenomenal. Woo! The sound of it is just fantastic. It's like it's got two different personalities. When it's revving a bit lower, it's more like a V-twin. And then when you really let it spin up, which you pretty much have to do in first gear on the road, well, you get that ridiculous V4 howl. I don't think there was any question about how quick this bike would be. Certainly if you were paying attention in the specs part, you'll know it makes well over 200 horses, and safe to say you're gonna assume it's gonna be pretty fast, but I mean on the road, even in first gear, doing 60, it's doing 10,000 RPM, so it's got another 5,000 RPM to go, and I wouldn't even want to tell you what sort of speed it's doing, even if you just shift into second. Thing is, on the road though, you can just ride it in that 5 to 10,000 RPM range for a lot of corners like this, and it's still absolutely rapid. It's just that then if you get the chance to properly open it up somewhere with a bit of you know, a more open road, then you can go into proper warp speed. If you shift down, get the revs up, I mean, it's terrifying. Quite honestly, it's pretty hard to get it full throttle on the road, if at all. And on top of that, I'm only in, you can't see it because of my camera, but road mode. Road, wet, which I think is a new thing, the wet mode. Race and sport. I think I'm too scared to put it in race. Let's try it in sport. Oh my goodness. As you'd expect, the handling's phenomenal as well. It feels light, it feels taut. Maybe I was expecting these high pure calipers as well. The latest, most sporty, top of the range stuff from Brembo to feel really grabby and aggressive and maybe not that nice on the road, but actually, obviously they're very powerful, but the initial bite's quite friendly. And then God knows what's going on with the suspension. It's so advanced now with the latest EC3 and the DVO stuff, but obviously it's giving you loads of support both on the gas and when you brake. And all you got to really worry about is the fact that corners come up extremely quickly when you're on a 214 horsepower bike. It's a bit like when you're playing Gran Turismo and you start out in like a Miata, which I believe is the MX-5 here, and you think you're starting to get quite good at your favourite tracks and roads, and then you get on the next class and you go into something quicker and you realise you've got to learn it all again. Absolute madness, what a machine. Now that all said, I potentially wasn't looking forward to this bike quite as much as I should have been, just because of riding the Panigale V4 the other day, which is very, very focused in the riding position, and that made me think, I don't know if I'd choose one of those for like a quick, fun, sporty blast on the road. Actually though, when you get this thing out for a spin, you'll find a bike that is far more comfortable, despite having so much in common in terms of the chassis. Aside from the fact that they moved the bars back versus the previous gen Streetfighter V4, they've also moved the pegs. So those are forward and down, I believe. And so you're just that little bit more sat up, and yet you can still get your elbows down and get tucked in and slide your bum all the way back on this longer seat if you do want to feel like you're getting a bit more stuck in. One other feature in terms of the comfort as well that did jump out at me from the press releases and all that marketing stuff is the fact that the latest Öhlins suspension has something called cruise detection, which when you're holding a constant speed kind of assumes that you want a softer ride. Now it still is a pretty firm bike, but it doesn't feel awful like I say, in a straight line, and so potentially that's one of the factors there. So I guess in some ways it's a bit more practical than I was expecting, but would I still buy one for riding majority on the road? I think still it is definitely in the overqualified category, and I also feel with bikes like this, it's not specific to this bike, it's the same with the Super Duke or, you know, the MV Agusta 1000 Brutale, that there's something maybe a little bit dissatisfying about only ever riding it, or mainly riding it, at a small fraction of what it's capable of. Really, what's enticing about this bike is just the sheer impressiveness of it. I'm not too proud to admit that I do get a bit of a buzz out of riding bikes like this, just because of the way it looks, the spec of it, the price on it, to be fair, and the knowledge that it's pretty much faster than anything else you'll meet out on the road that day. So yes, it is way more capable than you'll ever need, but that still doesn't stop it from being very, very, very exciting.
Now at £24,995 for this one, well of course it's a heck of a lot of money and probably puts it in the top 5 most expensive bikes I'll ride this year. But I guess in terms of impressing your mates, be that the looks, the spec sheet figures, or by just how quickly it'll leave them in the dust, if that sort of thing matters to you, then there are very few naked bikes that will even come close. The standard Streetfighter V4 with the lesser suspension and wheels comes in at $22,895. But if the S model is already out of budget, then I guess that's not really a great deal of help. For road riders, I would definitely recommend checking out the V2s, which range from 14 to 16,000 and are perhaps a little more agile and nimble, and therefore more easily usable on tighter roads. I think my lasting impressions of this bike will be that it's absolutely everything that you'd want a ridiculous Supernaked to be. It's far more money than you ever need to spend on a bike, and it's so flipping fast that it can easily scare the living daylight out of you. It's got the looks, it's kind of menacing from the front end, like it does want to actually kill you, and the level of kit and hardware and chassis spec is straight off a top-of-the-range sports bike. Then you've got the tech package, which has pretty much all trickled down from their MotoGP program, and yet somehow, with the changes they've made to this bike for this year and the Panigale, they've made something that's not completely unrideable. And then with the Streetfighter specifically, well, they've just changed the bars and foot pegs to make something that's not even that uncomfortable. In fact, I could happily ride this bike all day long, and in fact all week long, and month long, and year long, if Ducati would let me. As always though, I'd love to know what you think of the bike, so do let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to see more of the best new nakeds on the market for 2025, then I'll put our roundup on the screen now so you can check it out in case you missed it. Do hit subscribe for more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll catch you in the next video.